The talk of brand damage is all the rage if you look at any of the serious or not so serious. What's the difference? Financial publications, you will find that Elon is destroying Tesla, and that, of course, they're going to be out of business. Never mind the fact that a perfect storm quarter, where all the factories were retooling their most popular vehicle and the biggest blast of brand damage ever hit, they were still profitable, pulling in more cash than any of their competitors, at least on a margin basis. And but maybe it's real. What if it is real? That's what we're going to discuss today. I got my good friend Larry Goldberg here. We're going to have a conversation of what if the brand damage is not only very real, but permanent? What will that mean for Tesla? I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. Larry, so good to see you, man. How you been?
Great to be here again. I've been great, and just enjoying life. It's just a fun time.
For those who don't know, Larry is a serial entrepreneur, a early Tesla investor, a author, and a pretty well-known figure in the Tesla community for discussions about how the stock market works and all that. Is all that fair, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about brand damage. Let's say it's real. I know everyone I know on Facebook in my narrow little bubble says they'll never buy one again. Now, mind you, the person saying that, their bubble's probably made up primarily of people who've never bought one before and were already never going to. That would be like, me boycotting a certain brand of shampoo. I don't buy that much shampoo, Larry. So I don't know how
I don't buy
valuable.
any shampoo, so
We got to work on. We got to get the scientists on it. Is what's going
right,
on.
right.
But let's say the brand damage is real. Would that be the end of Tesla?
Well, the brand damage is in a very narrow, or the purported brand damage is in a very narrow, political group. I think that, for example, where I live, which is in the Research Triangle Park, which is an area around Raleigh, North Carolina, there is a very liberal streak because we're a Research Triangle Park because we have three major universities in this triangle. And so you get this group of people who probably belong to that class that are purport to be, anti-Elon. And you see some of the stickers on the back of the Tesla saying, I bought this before Elon was going crazy. So there are those, but the question is, is it permanent? Is it very serious? And I think the answer, there are a couple of parts to the answer, in my view, and I could be wrong. The one is that there's an offset to that. So there are people who were unaware of Elon, unaware of Tesla, and or anti-Tesla before, who have come to know Elon, have come to really appreciate what he's doing, and who are now reconsidering buying Tesla. So that offset is quite real in the United States of America. Now, where the brand damage is really serious, in my opinion, is in Europe. We have seen a very big falling off in sales, particularly in some countries, in those countries where there's a very large progressive wing. And, it's a very, very liberal continent or liberal union. And so there has been brand damage, and there seems to be a very significant reduction in sales. And Elon's spoken about it. So yeah, that brand damage is real. And the question is it long standing? Here is my view on it. The bulk of Tesla's income in the coming years is not going to be in vehicle sales. That's not going to be Tesla's primary revenue base. Tesla's primary revenue base is going to be in autonomous ride-hail and in robotics, embodied AI, if you like. Those two segments, and energy, but the two segments I've mentioned, the embodied AI segments, are going to account for a very large percentage, perhaps even an overwhelming percentage of Tesla's revenue. And in those areas, and we've seen, by the way, very clearly that in the ride hail business, the Ubers that are Teslas are extremely popular, even amongst that sort of narrow group that are, opposed to Elon Musk, blah, blah, blah. They're happy to get into a Tesla. And we know that from, a lot of public media. We see, ride hail again and again picking up people who talk about Elon and are negative on Elon, but they get into that, right? So clearly, that is not anything that you could even concern yourself in terms of brand damage. And on the robot, there's absolutely no doubt that there's not going to be a boardroom consensus that's going to be against, saving a huge amount of money. So I think the brand damage thing is ephemeral. I think that it's a media thing, and I think media is somewhat affecting a small group of people, but I think we'll see it pass, and particularly pass in the energy and, more importantly, in the ride hail and robotics segment, that is embodied AI segment. And we're not hearing you.
So, for those who enjoyed this conversation and enjoy Larry generally, did you know that just next month he's going to be joining us at the 2022 Summer Meetup in Muskegon, Michigan? He'll be speaking on June 20th. Along with a whole bunch of great folks. We're going to have Sandy Monroe there. His wife Sue may also be speaking. We're not sure. There may be some last minute scheduling conflict. Justin, the bearded Tesla guy, Jim Spencer, so many great people. Dirty Tesla, the Tesla Tinos, Matt and Bradford, fellow Rebellionaires. By the way, you and I are both members of the Rebellionaire group. But full disclosure, that doesn't mean anything. We're not employees. We don't. All we do is hang out in the private chat that they have and answer each other's deep questions. Of course, Larry, Jordan Giesecke, get your tickets now, teslamichigan.org. I bought this before Elon was crazy. No, you didn't. You bought this before you knew which flavor of crazy he was, because
Yeah.
he's always been crazy. That's part of the package deal. When it comes to, you said,
And he's evolved.
and
He's
he's
great.
evolved.
Yeah,
Sure.
he's evolved.
When you said that, you made a very good point. You said in the boardroom, there's not going to be a sit down moment where they say, well, we're not going to buy Tesla bots. Here's the reality in terms of brand damage. Walmart is not a beloved company. Amazon is not a beloved company. And yet they put their name on the sides of semi trucks to advertise, to brag. We do exist. But let's talk about Walmart and Amazon and their robots. Do you know which brand of robots they use? Because I've looked and I can't find it. I can find some, but the answer is, and correct me if I'm wrong, whichever ones do the job the best and the cheapest.
Perfecto. Yeah, absolutely on target.
Yeah, we don't know. Megapacks. Do you know what brand of stationary storage, or even if there's any, at your local utility? I don't know. I just want the lowest power rates and the most reliability. So those are all business to business things. So when it comes to embodied AI, like the robot, but let's talk about the car. What about the people saying, I can spot a Tesla because it says Tesla on it, because it's maybe using the Tesla app? I'll never use one. What do you say to those people?
They best not use it. I mean, you know, I, I really don't believe that there's going to be a serious limitation to their market, except in specific markets and for a very limited amount of time. I think that the that this too shall pass. Um, and particularly if this government achieves its goals, many of its goals. But at the end of the day, I haven't seen any, or in speaking to, Uber drivers, because I take Teslas a lot on Uber, a lot. I select the electric option on my Uber, and very frequently attend an Uber ride in an Uber ride share. And I ask the drivers, if anybody not prepared to drive an Uber? And I haven't found one that has a problem with an Uber. And I ride in some very liberal areas, areas where you would have thought,
You mean a Tesla?
I mean, Tesla, ride in many Teslas in many, very, very liberal, cities. Haven't found one driver of an Uber who said that Ubers are, there's a negative connotation to driving an Uber. So I think you're once removed, and I think sufficiently removed from, if there is, antipathy towards Elon, there's one removed from Elon in rideshare.
So all of those things, people seem to forget how short consumers' memories are.
Yeah.
After Dieselgate, Volkswagen is done. No, they're doing fine. They're actually doing great. People have forgotten. Uh, but even if this was real, they forget the value that people place on their own dollars when it
Yes.
comes to protest. When Tesla dropped prices a couple years ago by $5,000, I can't tell you how many people I saw on Reddit, where Elon and Tesla have never been popular, saying, uh, you know, I hate the guy, but for that price. So everyone has a price. And for those people, it's $5,000. But the reality is, Uber is very expensive. It's like 3, $4 a mile if you're lucky.
I don't think I've managed to get a $4 a mile ride now for a couple of years. So it's north of $4, whatever they tell you.
If if the Cybercab costs the exact same as an Uber, it's cheaper because there's no expectation to tip. If it costs any amount less, you are saving money. It doesn't have to be half the price of Uber. It only has to be the same price and better, or any amount less, and it will begin consuming the market. If someone really wishes to protest at their own expense, they're free to do that. But it's not a meaningful protest. You're not actually accomplishing anything. And I think people will recognize that fairly quickly. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I do. And, as I've said before, I think people see, the problem once removed if it's just a ride share as opposed to owning the car. Remember, when they're owning the car, they're kind of making a statement. I bought this Tesla. If they're ride sharing, they're not making any statement to anybody unless they're ride sharing from their home, perhaps. But in general, I think that's a very, very disconnected relationship. That's my thinking, and I've tested that hypothesis in quizzing drivers, Uber drivers in Austin, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, many of these cities.
Well, I would never, Larry, I would never, and I mean this, never buy a yellow car. I'd I'd ride in one, and I have
Yeah,
many, many times.
yeah,
I don't care what my taxi looks
pretty
like.
fair. Yeah,
I don't I don't think I've ever bothered to think about who made the taxi I was sitting in,
right.
unless it was electric. And then I've got questions. Uh,
I mean, one of the bigger issues I think is that in order to use the ride hail, they're going to have to download the Tesla app. That may be a step that they're not going to want to take. But I mean, I didn't think we're talking about the vast majority of people who use ride hail. But we'll see. I mean, by the time the ride hail becomes national, I think we'll be past this point of maximum Elon hate. That's my guess, but we'll see.
I feel like we're already past it. The
Yeah, maybe.
hostility I've seen in public has already declined. The
Hmm.
hostility I feel, generally online appears to have diminished, though the internet is very good at curating individual bubbles. It's possible that I've curated out enough of those people. Now, what I'm seeing, because I use the comment section on these videos. Guys, feel free to leave a comment as a barometer for what's really going on. And what I am seeing now is a trend of comments that you usually see just before a product launch that's about to be really successful. I'm seeing all kinds of very peculiar doubts and concerns about how robotaxi might fare, how the lower cost model might fare. And those are the kind of doubts that we saw before the launch of the Model Y, before the launch of the Model 3, when something big is about to happen and they're scared. But we're going to have a second discussion, a separate discussion, probably coming up tomorrow, where we discuss the ability to see the future, because in the past you have done that at least once, that we will discuss, and I have done it once as well to a lesser degree, but I did it later because I'm so much younger. That's probably it. So, guys, in the comments, what do we miss? What do we misunderstand? All that good stuff. Come out and join us for the big summer meetup in Muskegon. It's going to be a whole heap of fun. And everybody else, stay tuned, stay juicy, and I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots in Michigan.